verse 7. When the men of that place asked him about his wife, he said, "She is my sister." Because he was afraid to say, "She is my wife," he thought the men of this place might kill me on account of Rebekah because she is beautiful. Exactly what his dad did with Sarah, because he was worried that if he said it was his wife, he'll kill him, take his wife to be their wife, to be their girlfriend. And so he says, comes up with this cover up, and she's my sister. Verse 8, when Isaac had been there a long time, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked down from a window and saw Isaac caressing his wife Rebekah. So Abimelech summoned Isaac and said, "She is really your wife." "Why did you say she's my sister?" Isaac answered him, "Because I thought I might lose my life on account of her." Then Abimelech said, "What is this that you've done to us? One of the men might have slept with your wife, and you would have brought guilt upon us." So Abimelech gave orders to all the people, "Anyone who molests this man or his wife shall surely be put to death." And poor Abimelech, he's encountered this problem with his dad, and now his son is doing the exact same thing. And he must be so fed up at this point of time. But, it does go to show, we don't like to think that we are like our parents, that we are our own people. But we inherit the same DNA, and sometimes we inherit the same mannerisms and the same sins as we do our forefathers. And they go hand in hand, the good and the bad. Isaac inherits this relationship with God. He also inherits the sin of his dad. Both are happening here. Verse 12, Isaac planted crops in that land, and the same year reaped 100-fold because the Lord blessed him. The man became rich, and his wealth continued to grow until he became very wealthy. He had so many flocks and herds and servants that the Philistines envied him. So all the wells that his father's servants had dug in the time of his father Abraham, the Philistines stopped up and filling with earth. So, so he wasn't able to depend on all these wells. We've mentioned before, you have a lot of animals, they all need water. So the Philistines played dirty. They just filled up all these wells with earth that his dad had dug up. So in order to try to, mess with his business and try to cause him to not be as prosperous as he is. Verse 16, then Abimelech said to Isaac, "Move away from us, you become too powerful." It's so funny. So Abimelech is intimidated by Isaac because he's just been blessed by God 100-fold. That's incredible. Imagine, it's a famine as well. Everyone during lockdown is not doing well, and so your business grows by 100-fold. And essentially, the land can't sustain. You need to move away. Don't stay here anymore. So verse 17, Isaac moved away from there and encamped in the valley of Gerar and settled there. Isaac reopened the wells that had been dug in the time of his father Abraham, which the Philistines had stopped up after Abraham died, gave them the same names his father had given them. Isaac's servants dug in the valley and discovered a well of fresh water there. But the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herdsmen and said, "The water is ours." So he named the well Esek. Esek means dispute, because they disputed with him. Then they dug another well, but they quarreled over that one also, so he called it Sitnah. Sitnah means opposition. He moved on from there, dug another well. No one quarreled over it, so he called it Rehoboth. Rehoboth means room, space, saying, now the Lord has given us room or space and we will flourish in the land. So dispute, problem, but finally there is relief, there is room. Verse 23, from there he went up to Beersheba. That night the Lord appeared to him and said, "I am the God of your father Abraham. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will bless you and will increase the number of your descendants for the sake of my servant Abraham." Isaac built an altar there and called on the name of the Lord. There he pitched his tent, and there his servants dug a well. Meanwhile, Abimelech had come to him from Gerar with Ahuzah, his personal advisor, and Phicol. You remember him, Phicol, back from chapter 21. He approached his dad, Abraham, and made this covenant with Abraham. So here is Phicol again, the commander of his forces. Isaac asked him, "Why have you come to me since you're hostile to me?" and sent him away. Good question. Abimelech said, "Go away." Now Abimelech is coming to him with his military commander, with his bodyguards. And he answered, "We saw clearly that the Lord is with you." So he said, "There ought to be a sworn agreement or a covenant between us and you. Let's make a treaty or a covenant with you that you will do us no harm, just as we did not molest you, but always treated you well, sent you away in peace, and now you're blessed by the Lord." Isaac then made a feast for them, and they ate and they drank. Early the next morning, the men swore an oath to each other. Then Isaac sent them on their way, and they left him in peace. A few more verses, almost at the end. That day, Isaac's servant came and told him about the well they had dug. They said, "We found water." He called it Sheba. And to this day, the name of that town has been Beer-sheba. Remember, and it's, again, you just have to look at Genesis chapter 21. And remember there was the treaty there at Beer-sheba. Yeah, really cool. And because Sheba means oath, Sheboah means oath or seven. And so that's why, and maybe, it's so coincidental. The same well, the same people, the same agreement. And Isaac answered. It just shows God's providence. It's almost like a repeat. There's a variation on this theme, but it's the same theme. Verse 44, when Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith, daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and also Basemath, daughter of Elon the Hittite. They were a source of grief to Isaac and Rebekah. Yeah. Okay, so what we see here, so Isaac and his father's sons, same reaction, same excuses, same faults. And on the positive side, he has the same relationship with God. He has the same blessings from God, same promises of God. And I think if you just zoomed out and you looked from God's perspective, what you're seeing here is God's plan, God's blessing flowing down one more generation. The same blessing, because it's the same God. And it shows that God is unchanging in a good way, but we are unchanging in a bad way. We still, commit the same sins. We still rebel against Him. We still find excuses to cover up all our faults. And I think that just accentuates God's grace all the more. God could have given up. God, in fact, perhaps should have given up on Isaac. He has no reason, to show the same grace. But it's because God is keeping that same promise. He says there, for the sake of my servant Abraham, it's always for Abraham's sake. In verse 24, he says that, verse 5, because Abraham obeyed me and kept my requirements. So God is essentially keeping His promises. And so what it shows here is the difference between just mannerism and character, between just, making a pact and making a covenant. And what it says is, at the end of the day, what do we learn from it? What is the point I'm trying to make? I don't know. What do you think? What do you think? Let me try to explain what my lines of thinking. Because it's the same reaction, the same character, the same problems, and God has every right to change the stipulations of the covenant, but God doesn't. It shows how faithful God is in keeping that covenant, that contract. I don't know what example. So let's use this internet connection, for instance. Today I have no internet, and say, that's fine. I just deal with it and I carry on. But say tomorrow there's no internet, and then the day after that there's no internet. What do? I cancel my contract, right? I go find another provider. Say, you guys no use. But here is Isaac. Abraham committing that same sin, taking God's protection for granted, And then God says, okay, all right, no, I'll keep the contract. But then his son commits the same thing from beginning to end. And God has every right to change the terms of the contract. He doesn't. He blesses Isaac in fullness. Here's the thing. The amazing 100 times, even though he doesn't deserve it, but it shows that God keeps the terms of the contract even when we don't. God is faithful even when we aren't. God is, the God of this covenant. Even when we forsake that covenant, we take it for granted. And I guess that's just the kind of point that I'm trying to make here. And I guess it's funny until the point that it isn't. If the internet keeps going down, I mean, we'd be fully justified, fully change providers. In the same way, if you make promises that are really serious, like in marriage, or just, you have promises with a particular job you're meant to do, you have a responsibility and you don't keep that responsibility. If it involves, life and death, if it involves just being honest and being truthful, and you aren't honest and you aren't truthful, and that's the case with Isaac here, you would think that therefore, that's the time to kind of like cut ties and cut loose. But God doesn't do that. God keeps his covenant. He shows his grace because it's based on his character, on his faithfulness, on his truthfulness. Yeah. Okay, all right, so that's all I'm going to say. Hopefully I didn't use up too much of my bandwidth and my internet, and hopefully the internet comes back. Actually, it did come back. Okay, I think it might be back. So, okay, all right, I'll continue this. If it works, I'll continue this, the other readings with my broadband. Okay, all right, see you then. Okay, bye.